So, one of the biggest problems with horror movies is that they're very easy to make and they're very profitable. Because let's think about this logically for a minute. Most horror movies don't even really require CG. Or if they require CG, it's very simple. The vast majority are done with practical effects, and they're not very complicated practical effects. They're things like blood and gore, which is very easy, maybe some masks. You can almost get most of the stuff at just a normal Halloween store. And on top of that, they mainly just have no name actors in them. And if you know anything about how movies are made, in a lot of cases, the majority of a film's production budget can be just hiring the stars. Like for the Pirates movies, I think Johnny Depp was commanding like 60 or 70 mil, some absurd amount of money to appear in the movies. And like that's like six times the budget of this entire film. And this film had a pretty large budget for a horror movie at around 10 to 15 million dollars. Like I said, the fact that that's considered large, I think really says something. My point being, there's no real desire for quality control because they're going to make money no matter what. So is it really worth it to put the extra $10 million dollars in and make something of really high quality if it's probably going to make about the same amount of money as just something they pump out? And that's not to say there aren't a lot of good quality horror movies. In recent years, we've had Lights Out, we've had Don't Breathe, It Follows. These are all really good movies. But for every good horror movie, there's like three or four just crummy ones they pump out. And in particular, found footage films are especially guilty of this because they normally have less special effects in them and they don't even require good camera work. I think Paranormal Activity only cost $10,000 to make. It was some minuscule amount of money. So my point being, because they're so popular, there's no reason not to make sequels, and there's no reason to do any kind of quality control in the sequels. If somebody sees the name Halloween in a movie, they're like, "Oh, I like that original movie. That was pretty good. I might as well go see this movie." And they'll go see it, and it'll be really mediocre, and it'll be awful. And then they'll be like, "Okay, I guess I got tricked into it." And there's going to be a certain percentage of the population they're going to trick into seeing any movie with Halloween in it, and they're always going to make a lot of money off of it. Maybe like they aren't going to make like Avatar levels of money, but relative to the production budget, it's a very safe gamble. Very few horror movies lose money. Most of them, in comparison to the production budget, will make like 400, 500% profit, which is excellent, and I doubt they take very long to film because like I said, there's nothing that complicated about them. And once again, this can be a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing is there's a very low barrier to entry. If an aspiring young director who just wants to make a horror movie, there's not a lot stopping them. I would also imagine it's not that hard to get it distributed because it's not really taking a risk to release a horror movie. It's going to make money. So that's kind of cool. Once again, that's not saying they're necessarily low quality. It's just saying you're always kind of taking a bit of a gamble. There's that, and then critics just hate horror movies, and they'll give them bad reviews, even if the movie's not that bad. Why that's the case exactly, I'm not really sure, but they really don't like them. So this was interesting when I saw the trailer because it looked like they actually put some effort into this movie. I was kind of intrigued because this isn't like the crappy Rob Zombie ones. This looked a lot more like the original. You have Jamie Lee Curtis back, and she's a much bigger star now than she used to be. The video quality looked a lot better. The production effects looked a lot better. The trailer looked a lot more professional. This looked like a pretty cool movie. So basically, the premise of Halloween 2018 is they're saying, okay, so the previous like 10 sequels or whatever didn't happen. This is a direct sequel to the original movie set 40 years after the original movie. This seems to be a thing they're doing a lot lately. They did it with Rambo, they did it with Rocky, they did it with Blade Runner, where they're taking kind of these old movie series and they're giving them sequels like 20, 30, 40 years later. And frankly, I'm a big fan of it. I think by and large, they've turned out pretty good. They have. It's interesting to see how much movie technology has moved along. You know how much I love the new Blade Runner movie. I thought it was much better than the original. The visual effects, the CG, the writing, the music, it was all just incredible. I loved it. I think they were really able to give life to Ridley Scott's version of the future in a way that they just weren't in the original. So I haven't found them to by and large be low quality. Rocky Six I thought was pretty good. The new Rambo movie I thought was pretty good. There's nothing wrong with these films. So it's kind of for once a trend in Hollywood that's not cancerous. I mean, and there's been some really bad trends, like the presented in two parts for your viewing displeasure, where they made every part three of a trilogy two parts, was absolutely horrendous. From the Harry Potter to the Hunger Games, there's no reason those movies couldn't be in one part other than greed, because greed is massively strong. Anyway, so back to the movie. So this takes place 40 years after the original. None of the sequels happened. Michael Myers is not Laurie Strode's sister. So, I mean, I don't really have an issue with that. I thought that was kind of an interesting side note, but the director felt he wanted to strip away more of Michael Myers' backstory and just have him an incarnation of evil, which once again I'm okay with. I like Michael Myers a lot more than, say, Jason Voorhees. I guess of kind of the slasher villains, I like Michael Myers and I like Freddy Krueger for different reasons. Michael Myers is interesting as just a pure avatar of evil. And Freddy Krueger is interesting because he has more agency. Unlike being kind of a blind force of nature, he's a much more cunning and entertaining villain who can kind of scheme and plan, etc. So he's kind of a bit different. But yeah, I like Michael Myers a lot. So the film opens, like I said, 40 years later. Laurie was utterly scarred and her life was ruined by the events of the first movie, and she spent the last 40 years preparing for Michael Myers to break out. In fact, she wants him to break out so she can kill him and finally have closure. And she trained her daughter in like firearms and survival techniques and stuff, but her life has overall been a disaster. She's had multiple divorces. People think she's crazy. She lives out in the wilderness in this house that's designed to be like an anti-Myers house, which is pretty cool. So this film has that. It has a lot of shout outs to the original. You have like the babysitter. You have like the creepy guy in the closet. You have Michael Myers getting the original kitchen knife and stabbing people. You have a lot of just really interesting aspects to the movie. There's the scene where like Michael Myers falls down and they look away and then they look back and he's gone. They do that with Laurie in this film. It's also interesting because they kind of take the perspective of what if the people in a horror movie weren't completely retarded, which is an interesting perspective. What if they actually were trying to legitimately fight the evil? And they somewhat succeed on this. They're still pretty retarded because they have all these powerful guns, but they tend to only take one shot with the gun, drop it, and then go to like a knife or something. If you're going to have these powerful semi-auto shotguns, I don't get why you don't just try to blow Michael Myers' head off. Like, why you just shoot him once, drop it, and then switch over to a knife. This is this thing with Hollywood movies where they seem to think guns suck, when historically, if people have guns, they use guns. Like, the whole close combat thing is epic, but it doesn't make any sense to me. So one of kind of the interesting things they find about these movies is how powerful is Michael Myers? Because most of what he does is within normal human abilities for someone that big and that strong. And the actor, I believe, is 6'2" or 6'3", but the character is always filmed like he's much larger than that. And so he like can tear people apart, etc. But a man that big, I can just imagine doing that. Now, how he's that strong because he doesn't seem to work out in prison, I don't know. but he's just evil. So I guess that gives him super strength. But Laurie manages to blow off one of his hands, and he gets another hand chopped off, I think. So he can definitely be hurt, but he also gets shot in the head twice in the movie, and that doesn't seem to really affect him much. They also burn him in like an inferno, and I think it's implied that he gets away, but I'm kind of viewing the ending as it can go either way. Either Michael Myers gets completely incinerated and the franchise is over, or he gets away and we can have another series of sequels. Whether or not Jamie Lee Curtis will return again, I don't know. I think the movie's fine as a standalone. I think you could interpret the ending. I think it's more leaning towards him getting away. I think if you want to interpret the ending as Jamie Lee Curtis has kind of finished her redemption arc and she finally has closure, that's fine. So most of the movie is about Jamie Lee Curtis's relationship to her daughter and granddaughter. They think she's crazy. Michael Myers succeeds in breaking out when the bus crashes. There's a new psychiatrist who succeeded Lumen. Lumen in this just died of old age. The whole thing, once again, about Laurie being Michael Myers' sister was removed. He just has an obsession with her as the one that got away. And the new psychiatrist actually empathizes with Michael, and he wants to understand the sense of power Michael feels when he kills people. And like one of the twists, spoiler alert, is he actually kills the police officer from the first film. Because in the first film, the police officer stopped Lumen from killing Michael Myers. And in this one, the police officer runs him down with his car, and he's going to take his revolver and just unload it into Michael Myers' head. So he'll be permadead because nothing, not even like a serial killer, can survive their head being blown off. I think Lumen's original plan was to blow off his head and then incinerate the body, which I think is the best way of dealing with kind of one of these supernatural creatures, because I don't think anything can survive its head being cut off and being burned alive. There's nothing then to resurrect. So we get lots of classic scenes of Michael Myers killing people in brutal ways. This film isn't really scary, I guess, in the way a lot of, like, I don't know if there's, like, any jump scares. It's very, like, subtly creepy. I always like the theme of inevitable death. And Michael Myers is very much the theme of a inevitable death in this movie. He's just a pure force of nature. And yeah, so the movie is kind of him and Laurie fighting each other. Laurie's kind of tried to become a predator. She's got all the guns, etc. And she's trying to take Myers down, and he's trying to find her and finish the fight. It's kind of this climatic battle, and it's very creative, particularly at the end, because she has all these like anti-Myers traps set up, etc. So there's kind of lots of shout outs to the original movie, a lot of scenes that are very obviously references to the original film, but it's more of kind of a big sloppy love letter than something like the Marvel movies where it's just excessive and it ruins the film. In the case of this movie, I think it was completely fine, and I never felt it really went over the top. But yeah, this film was just a much more polished product. It was a lot better put together than most horror movie sequels. Maybe with the exception of Halloween 2, I think it did the original the most justice of kind of any of the movies that came later. So yeah, I definitely like the movie a lot. I would recommend it if you like the Halloween movies or horror movies in general. This is probably the best that we're going to get this Halloween season as far as a good horror movie is. Now, I did see a trailer for Happy Death Day 2, and I'm looking forward to that because I really like the first movie. The second movie looks like it just kind of builds on the first. Will it be good? Will it be bad? I don't know, but I'll definitely go check it out. So I don't have a ton else to say. Just an overall good movie. Definitely recommend going see it. Michael Myers is back. The Halloween franchise is back. We can just forget the whole Rob Zombie reboot because that was truly horrendous, as were most of the movies he made. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll talk to you later.